What's up, wall fans? What's up, common sensors? And what's up, beer fans? That's right, it's yet another exciting edition of Go Tell It to the Brewery. Don't know who I am? Well, I am your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And if you're not familiar with Go Tell It to the Brewery, back up a little, in the playlist there. Catch up, find some beers maybe you didn't know you liked or you hadn't tried before. And then when you get to here, we're going to talk about some new beers. That's right. In this exciting edition of Go Tell It to the Brewery, we are talking about Humboldt Brewing Company. Humboldt Brewing Company. Why does Humboldt sound familiar to you? Think about it, especially if you don't live in California. Why is Humboldt familiar to you? Yes, there's a college there. There's some other things going on there. It also happens to be, well, maybe changing now that things are changing within the laws, but at one time was the marijuana capital of California. That's right. The majority of the marijuana from California was grown in Humboldt. They had very loose laws. Like many, many years ago, before we were getting this recreational stuff in Colorado and California and Washington and Oregon and all these places were doing it, yeah, Humboldt was all about it. And the interesting thing about Humboldt Brewing Company, we hear about all these craft breweries these days. Craft brewery here, craft brewery there. That dude, my neighbor down the street's making beer in his garage and has a bar, and it's popular because all the hips. Yep, I know. It's the thing now. It's the thing. Craft breweries. Well, Humboldt Brewing Company, they've been doing this since 1987. 1987. So for you millennials out there, they've probably been doing this before you were alive. That's right, before you were alive, which is interesting because I've known of Humboldt Brewing Company for quite a while. We've had a couple of their beers on the Go Tell It to the Wall podcast, in fact. However, it wasn't until recently that I realized they've been around since 1987. And the interesting thing about them is they were actually purchased back in 2005 by Firestone Walker. Not familiar with Firestone Walker? They are a brewing company out of Central Valley. They make a little brew called 805. 805. If you're not familiar with 805, we'll get into that at some point. However, the interesting thing with that was they were again purchased in 2010. Now, when they were purchased in 2005, they went from Humboldt Brewing Company to Nectar Brewing Company. See, they got a little nectar here on the bottle. And then when they were again purchased in 2010 by a larger beer distribution company, they went back to Humboldt Brewing Company, and that's what we see today is Humboldt Brewing Company that has been around since 1987. So with that little background out of the way, I know we do. You're like, I don't care. Tell me how the beer is. I get it. That's kind of how I am too. So with that background out of the way, right now we have a little bit of Humboldt Brewing Company Red Nectar All Natural Ale. That's right, it's all natural ingredients, which we're going to find with a lot of beers these days, so it's not that big a surprise. And it is an ale. The interesting thing about this one is, I'm going to be honest with you, brewery fans, I don't love it. I just don't love it. I've had this one before, and I opened one today, and I said, I love ales, I love IPAs. This one, it's not my favorite. That doesn't mean you won't like it, but Red Nectar is a little bit of a, I don't want to say incorrect title, because if you look at some of their other beers, you get a little fruity flavor. You get a little nectar flavor. With this one, it's not there. Not there. But doesn't mean it's a bad beer. It's just not particularly my cup of tea. I would say it's definitely like a California ale, but it has a little bit of a brown taste to it. If you're familiar with browns, brown ales, it has a little bit of a brown taste to it that you wouldn't expect going into one of these. Red Nectar. You would think, oh, it's going to have a little fruitiness to it, a little sweetness. Not quite. It's like a brown ale, and maybe that's the natural ingredients. I don't know. I don't dislike it, but I don't love it. It doesn't mean you wouldn't love it. So try one out, but I will tell you, if you're a little bit apprehensive on that, you're like, I don't really love brown ales. I get it. Like, I only like a few certain ones. But if you're interested to try Humboldt Brewing Company, and you're not a big fan of browns or even ales, but you do like IPAs, I would recommend the Humboldt Brewing Nectar IPA. This is one of the particular beers that we have had on Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. And this one is an IPA, but this is what the kids these days are calling New England IPAs. I don't know where that came from. Like, we need to geographically place things. So, it has fruit in it. It must be a New England IPA. I don't understand what that even means. I really don't, Wall fans. But we're calling them New England IPAs nowadays. However, this one comes out of Humboldt. It's be like Northern California. Not quite northern, like Lagunitas, but a little north of where I'm sitting right now in Los Angeles, California. So check them out. Nectar IPA. Not your typical IPA, but it's going to have a little fruitiness to it. Still got that hoppiness, And it's still a high alcohol content IPA, sitting at 6.7, so just under 7%. So it's not quite. I always consider 7 kind of the dividing line for alcohol content when it comes to IPAs. This one's not quite there, but it does have that hoppiness, which gets cut a little by the nectar and the sweetness that is in it. And in fact, this is one that, like, my wife, not an IPA fan at all. In fact, I even had her try this one because I was like, well, it's an A. No, but this one, she'll drink this one because the sweetness offsets the IPA. So if you're an IPA fan, check this one out. If you're not an IPA fan, but you like a little bit of hoppiness, check out Nectar IPA from Humboldt Brewing Company. And again, if you're an ale fan and a brown fan, which I'm a little bit of, I'm an IPA fan, pale ale fan, a little bit of a brown fan, check out the Red Nectar all natural ale from Humboldt Brewing Company. But my personal recommendation is the Nectar, but that doesn't mean you're not going to like this one. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert by any means. I just know what I like. You know, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. But thank you for watching this particular review of Red Nectar all natural ale from Humboldt Brewing Company, and of course, Nectar IPA from Humboldt Brewing Company. And remember, wall fans, common sensors, go tell it to the brewery fans. No matter what you're drinking, no matter who you're drinking with, no matter where it is you're drinking, and especially no matter why you're drinking, always drink with common sense.